9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
More that you can lean into your own personal discomfort, say what needs to be said in a non-offensive way, the more you make the world a better place.
Good stuff. I like that.
Oh, welcome to De-Escalation Conversations, our inaugural episode. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Is a special guest host and colleague and dear friend, the great Tony Blauer. And we could not be more thrilled to have as our inaugural guest on De-Escalation Conversations, the great Colonel Dave Grossman, whose work needs no introduction. Just Google his name and like Tony Blauer, just pages upon pages upon pages of incredibly formative, innovative, and seminal work with our public safety workforces, our armed services workforces, our clinical workforces, in raising awareness about items that people find very often inconvenient to talk about. I remember, Dave, almost 30 years ago, seeing you on network television talking about the danger of video games with kids. I mean, I remember that from nearly 30 years ago. You were present and out there carrying a message. And that later evolved into the profound messaging you began to put out about how we are over pathologizing veterans who come back with the natural trauma as a function of their duties and responsibilities. Such a courageous thing to talk about in the face of, healthcare settings that would immediately begin to diagnose and prescribe and send a message that something is wrong as opposed to something is just different now. So welcome to De-Escalation Conversations, Colonel. It's great to have you here. And Tony, thank you so much for your willingness to do this with me.
It's my pleasure and my honor. Andy, the stuff you're doing, and Tony and I have worked together for decades. Truly a legend, and you guys together are going to be awesome. Just want to hang around and see what happens with this amazing group.
Tell us a little bit how you two met, because that's been around for a long time. The relationship that you both have had.
Tony, go ahead.
I was going to make some joke about how old we were. I don't even remember now. We were, and it's crazy. I know it's not polite to ask, but Dave, how old are you now?
Well, I'm 69, and okay. Willie Nelson. I tell everybody, Willie Nelson is 92, on tour, writing songs and recording songs. That's who I want to be when I grow up. All of us.
Nice.
We plan to stay in the fight into our 90s. Yeah. By the time we get there, that'll be the norm.
You look fantastic.
Playing for the long game, folks. How about you, Tony? How old are you now, bro?
65, buddy. 65.
You're just a puppy.
It's interesting because, one of the questions I wanted to ask you at some point is to talk about the difference between obsession and passion. And I feel like guys like Andy, myself, you are obsessed. And obsession has a negative connotation for most people. But when you've got how many books you've written and how it didn't matter if it was like, in vogue or flavor of the month, you said what had to be said. You've always said what you had to say. I've seen you speak live numerous times. You always bring the heat like it's your first talk. And so for years, if someone looked at my work ethic and they call me obsessive, I would take it as an insult. And then one day it clicked and I went, no, I am obsessed about helping people manage fear. I am obsessed about trying to change how people manage violence. And all of us have that obsession. And I was going to say that you don't look 69.
No.
Andy, you don't look 100. But I think it's because we're obsessed. We love what we do. and it just keeps your brain so young.
You had a really important word there. You said passion, and really passion it derives from compassion, and the root. I'm really asking. I ask my cops. I ask my first responders. I ask my clinical professional assessor. Why do you stay in the fight? My first responders. Nobody's doing this for the money. But you know what? You know what makes a great first responder is empathy. Empathy says, what if it was my family trapped in that burning building? What if it was my mother laying there needing CPR? What if it was my son being assaulted? And empathy is love in action. Compassion and love is really what drives us. We've got information that can help people. And the only thing that will sustain you across the long haul is love. I believe that with all my heart. I'd say, what's the opposite of evil? The opposite of evil is the absence of love, just as darkness is the absence of light. And the only way to fight evil is with love. And as we love our fellow man, as we love our children, as we love our nation, as we love our God, love means the worse it is, the worse it gets, harder you fight. And that's what we're talking about, this compassion. And we know we've got tools that can help. And we've got this passion to get them out there. We've got this empathy for the people that are out there hurting and dying every day. And we say, we can help. We've got something of value. And that's the passion that makes it work. And that's the love that lies at the root of it. The empathy is love in action.
Colonel, I mean, for 30 years, both you and Tony, that comes through from both of you in such a palpable way. You can palpate it as it comes through the screen. And I can't think of a more timely topic right now. We came together, the three of us, for this episode around something Tony and I had observed on social media, and following events that have made national and global visibility in assassinations and school shootings and things that I know both of you have talked about previously. Interesting timing of this came out from you, Colonel. A discussion, a small piece that utilized very creative video that captured the essence of, in the technical sense, how we would validate another human being, how we would genuinely reflect feeling, restating content, all of the active listening skills and validation levels that we would speak about in a almost dispassionate way academically. You did a piece about the most powerful thing a first responder could say to someone in crisis. Tell me what's wrong. Yeah. Tell me what's wrong, and I will.
Andy, you left off a word though. Please tell me.
Right? Yeah, a request.
That's really important.
Please tell me what's wrong. Yeah,
that's part of it. It's a plea. It's how many times, I was on an airplane and the lady came through and took our drink orders. She came back by and said, "You're the only one that said please." How rare is that these days when somebody actually looks at you and says please? It's a plea. I deeply and truly want to know, please tell me what's wrong. And when you can do that, when you can say that, you're cutting right to the heart of the matter. You're cutting right to the soul of somebody wants to hear my story. Somebody cares. Yep. Somebody is approaching me as a fellow human being with compassion and politeness and asking what's wrong.
Genuineness.
Yes.
Tony, you I know where you're going to go with this, Tony. Please.
No, I mean, I was just going to go back to Dave's explanation of empathy versus sympathy, compassion and passion. Is that my favorite? Law enforcement social media stories are those officers saving lives where you got like the attempted suicide. Those always get me, where there's he's just talking. I don't have a uniform on. I'm talking to another human. Don't do this. Let's talk about this. And I got goosebumps thinking about that. I mean, there's amazing, courageous events out there, but something has changed. When you said when you noted, Dave, hey, Andy, you left out this keyword, please, here, is I can remember working in my dad's office. And I was heir to the, it was Blauer International, this big manufacturing company. It was a generational company. He had taken over from my grandfather. I was heir to this. It was 1980, 81, 82. And I would still knock on his door to his office, even if it was open. And I said, it was dad if he was alone, or sir if there was even a staff member who had watched me grow up. And something has really changed in the world, over decades. And that's, part of the root problem, that everything, people don't say please anymore. Imagine a flight attendant complimenting you for saying please. I say it all the time. I open doors for people. But here's the thing, when we talk about like Andy's research and work it's crazy that we need to train people, and I'm being a little sarcastic here, that we have to train people in de-escalation, right? Like it's I got to get a certificate to get to this should be how we were raised.
Yes.
Right. Respectful, mindful. Let me hear you, like your side, my side. Let's talk. And I know we'll get to the tragedy with Charlie Kirk, where people, I was in a podcast this morning where people don't want to talk anymore. It's you're wrong. And we treat each other like shit. And you can't be a good cop if you don't have that empathy. You can't be a good doctor. You can't be, all of it. Anyways, I'm going down a big rabbit hole, but
if I may, Tony, let me pose a question to you, Colonel, that Tony sets up here. The example you provided in that video, the example that you feel so passionate about articulating, is precisely today the core of a serious workforce problem. We have workforces of public safety personnel, behavioral health personnel, youth and family personnel, juvenile justice personnel, adult corrections personnel. I could go on. They receive a lot of training and messaging about the need to present empathy. And so many of them have been beneficiaries of what we would refer today as moral injury, burnout. It's very hard to produce a genuine affect of empathy when someone's tank is empty themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, in your worldview, how do we, because I know you have something to say about it, I can feel it. What do you say to people when this is the way? If the way is love a fellow man, love is the opposite of evil, love is what's going to set us free. When people are love empty, what do we do to support people that are supporting or serving the people that are in need of the empathy?
Well, let's start, just back up a step. Now, I give full credit here. I got this, the 3 most important sentences you'll ever say, from a lady who wrote a great article on the subject. There's only a handful of things we come up with in a lifetime that are our own, and give credit. But she said, the sentence is the first one, and I tell people this is the word that's always ready to go. It's the default position. It's the one that's always ready. An angry employee, an upset spouse, a hurting child. Please tell me what's wrong. And when people are in the middle of sympathetic nervous system arousal and they're not rational, and you want to just cut through to the rational person and pull that rational person out, these are the magic words that cuts in. Please tell me what's wrong. So even my background is as a soldier, at Ranger School. We'd be on the 3rd day without sleep and the 3rd day without food, and yet still expected to do the right thing. To give an operations order, situation, mission, execution, service, support, command, and signal, boom, boom, boom. And you had those things ready because they had been drilled into you. Regardless of how tired you are, regardless of how exhausted you are, you revert to that default position. Please tell me what's wrong. And then let them vent when they're talking. Now they've gone from sympathetic nervous system, midbrain takeover to a rational human being. The thing that makes us different than any other species is the power of speech. But at some point in there, when it's time for you to interject again, I'm sorry this is happening. And it's true. And again, it's having the right words at the right time. And we drill these things and we process these things. And finally, it's that I will do everything in my power to help you. And so these words, even when you are burned out, and we need to talk about that, even when you are in the midst of this circumstance, you have the right words available. And like Tony, I love the spear system and I love everything that Tony does. It's just rooted in having the right response at the right time, simple mechanisms, boom, that are there when you need it. In the same way, we have this simple kind of this physiological, psychological jujitsu that cuts right into the heart of the matter, and having those terms and those responses available ahead of time. So we train people with the right words at the right time so that they're saying the right thing. They've got that please, they've got that courtesy that Tony said is gone. We train that into them and let them know.
I love that you're saying this. This speaks exactly to what Tony and I do when we bring our training to workforces that need it. Tony is very prescriptive in the principles and the drills that translate to psychomotor activity in the physical. We are very prescriptive in our sequential thinking and speaking drills to engender something concrete that you know where to start. Hey, it looks like, please tell me if, like we have a whole spectrum of validation principles that you start with no matter what, even in the face of verbal assault. Sounds like you're really angry at me, so, the idea here is you're speaking precisely to how we move someone from not knowing what to do, thinking they can't do it, to introducing them to possibility.
Yeah. And then to take this to the next step, this is just a kind of a little thing to fit in there. When we talk about burnout, when we talk about compassion fatigue, I'm finding this is just really resonating with my audiences. Now, I retired in December '97, and I've been on the road ever since.
Yep.
Speaking of just this incredibly diverse group of audiences. And my audience is resonating with this part of it. I tell them it's not about religion. It's an existential question that every person asks. I wrote on combat. I've got 2 books, Marine Corps Commandant's Required Reading List. Tony, you'll get a kick out of this. On combat's been Commandant's Required Reading List, bestseller in the medical community during the pandemic. It won the Ukraine Book of the Year award. And in May or June of last year, they brought me to Ukraine. I spent my 67 years old, spent my summer vacation in the war zone, training there too. But the natural sequel of that is this on spiritual combat. And I tell people it's not about religion. It's an existential question.
Yes.
We got to at least be able to verbalize an answer. How could a loving God allow these terrible things to happen? And that's really important. And the answer is really, really important. A loving God would not make you his puppet. A loving God would allow you to make your own decisions. You ever heard if you truly love something, let it go. If it comes back, it's really yours. That's how much God loves us. He loves us enough to let us make our own decisions. That means a lot of people make really bad decisions. A lot of
oh
really.
My goodness, yes.
You say, God, why don't you do something? He said, I sent you. In the end, God does intercede. He does answer prayer, but God has no hands but ours. And there's no answer but us in this world. And so if we can take that perspective on things, that's a value. But when we start working on this thing, there's a couple of things to look at. And one is the post-traumatic growth. To take a minute to focus on the positive of what we do. We focus, like in the corrections community, we focus on recidivism, the number of people that go out and commit crime again after leaving prison. We don't focus on the vast majority who don't do that. We focus on post-traumatic stress and not post-traumatic growth. The vast majority, the World War II generation, the greatest generation, are kind of living example of post-traumatic growth. And so when we when we talk to the positives, I'll give you two quick examples. It's kind of blew me away. People come up, during the breaks in my presentations, you get a book. I ask them, what do you do? And how do you like it? And I'm working a lot with corrections people lately. And I ask them, how do you like it? It's amazing how many people say, I love what I do.
Yep.
One corrections lieutenant, she said, I have been able to convince an awful lot of people that one bad decision didn't have to define their life. Another one, a corrections sergeant, he said, he said, nobody on the planet does a better job than we do at giving people a second chance in life. Oh, I never even understood that insight that they were verbalizing there, the positive aspect of what we do, the successes that we do, the lives that we've changed, the people that we've sent on a more positive angle. But when we talk about this whole compassion fatigue and the burden our civilization's living under, we're in the middle of a global epidemic of sleep deprivation. The video,
Yes.
the social,
Thank you for bringing this up. This is a gigantic thing.
This huge industry that has got one purpose, and that's to steal your time and to steal your sleep. We talked earlier about video games. There can be no doubt that the video game is pathological if it steals your sleep, that the social media is dysfunctional if it steals your sleep.
Yes.
I can make anybody mentally ill in 24 hours without sleep. You really cross the line into what is irrefutable mental. By 36 hours without sleep, you are irrational, you are hostile, and that defines a huge part of our society. Imagine every human being out there interacting with another human being as a friction point. And all of us interact with dozens and dozens of human beings every day. And every one of those friction points can be lubricated with courtesy, or they can be little grains of sand that eats away at the fiber of our civilization. And this global epidemic of sleep deprivation, on the third day without sleep, you are flat psychotic. I will make anybody on the planet psychotic. I'll tell things from personal experience. Any graduate of Ranger School or SEER School will tell you about hearing things and seeing things that are not there on the third day without sleep. And so the link between sleep deprivation and mental illness is huge. And we're in the middle of this, the video games, the social media. The head of Netflix said their competitor is sleep. The corporate policy of Netflix is to steal your sleep. They don't care that they're killing people. And so look at the link, do an online search of the link between sleep deprivation and suicide. It's huge. I lost a little brother to suicide. I lost 2 nephews to suicide. As a West Point psychology professor, I studied suicide intensely. It enrages me that it wasn't until the last decade. I thought, I wonder if there's a link between suicide and sleep deprivation. I did an online search. Boom! It's overwhelming. It's this huge body of research. One of the best researchers on suicide says not only is sleep deprivation a major component, it is the most remediable factor. We can't do much with your relationships or your money, but we can do something about sleep right now.
Colonel, you raise a super interesting notion. Tony, I'm wondering what the fear my wife is driving, if you can't figure this out. So I'm in the camper as she's boarding the ferry. Tony, I drove all night from Nevada to get home today to be able to do this. And so we drove through the night, and anyway. I'm wondering how sleep predisposes the fear and the startle flinch circuitry in your area of focus. In other words, I would have to believe that someone's hypersensitivity could, or strike that, hypersensitivity could potentially be an outcome as a function of sleep deprivation in terms of their ability to navigate the world. Your thoughts?
Yeah. So there's 3 levels to that. One is I find it so funny watching you bounce up and down right now.
It's going to stop in a minute.
This is wild. So for sure, and I agree with everything that Colonel Dave said about sleep deprivation. What I do want to say is, if very often you get somebody who a sudden violent or a crisis happens and they sober up right? Say they're drunk and now they're sober. They're tired and now they're awake. So the human weapon system is amazing at that level. You can get to the point where, if you think about continuous, almost like you said, SEER school and some sort of event where sleep deprivation is part of the training. And really, there are people that end up dropping out and lose their shit during that, and there are people that hold it together. And I wanted to kind of pin that thought and come back to that fatigue that we talked about, and a story I want to share that happened to me 30 years ago in Australia. But the other part, Andy, to that is, if you're super, super tired, almost like if you've been tortured for days and days. In the beginning, you're fuck you, you're like, get this, and then eventually it's like, just freaking kill me. I don't give a shit.
Right.
So
right,
you can get to the point where you get, but what it is, it's an adaptation to the situation where your nervous system just doesn't care anymore, and that's I think that's the insidious connection to suicide and sleep. Is you get so tired that you want to sleep permanently, and as opposed to having, like, we all know, we get a good night's sleep, we wake up and we're like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, let's go. And so sleep is huge. I agree with that. The connection to self-defense, Andy, is situational. If you were bombarded with multiple nights, but if you knew you were in a survival situation and you were going to have to fight, almost like a soldier, in a war zone, you can be good to go if you've got your brain wired properly. And so I wanted to bring up this story. Hopefully that makes sense. Is I had gotten full custody of my son, who's now 34, a month after he was born. And I got custody of him with his biological mom. And it was crazy. It was unheard of for, first of all, in Canada, somebody get custody, like the male side. And then I even did it. Like, most people were like, well, we had a kid, it didn't work out, I'll see him on the weekends or every second weekend. I got full custody, and I booked this trip to Australia, and it was coming up in about 3 months. So I took him. He was 4 months old, to Australia, because I didn't have a nanny. I couldn't afford him. I actually said to my mom, I got to go do this. I'm growing my business. It's my first trip to Australia. I said, can you watch Nick while I'm gone? I was going to be gone a month. And she looked at me and she said, I love you, but you made your bed. You got to sleep in it. You shouldn't have done this. Right? I can't watch him for a month. I mean, she just said, I can't watch. She works. I can't watch him for a month. I can watch him for a weekend, but either like cancel your trip. I said, well, I can't cancel my trip. So I decided to take him. And it was an insane experience in all the areas that both of you are experts in. Like, I remember going through customs, and the guy said, where's the mom? I said, I am the mom. He goes, seriously, where's the mom? And I go, like, I have custody of my kid. He didn't want to believe me. And he got really angry with me. Like, it just, like, you talk about like trauma and you talk about PTSD and stuff like that. It was just a weird trip. Well, what I discovered when babies are teething, they cry a lot, right? I'm not a mom. It's my first kid. I get to Australia, and Australia bottles, the nipples and the bags are different size, and he had acclimated to the ones we had in Canada at the time. So he stopped drinking. So he was cranky. He was teething. He was up the whole flight. I get there. I got a course coming up in a week, and I'm not sleeping. And I'm in where you are, Dave, talking about, totally sleep deprived. I'd fall asleep, and all of a sudden he'd be like, and I get up and I'm like this. And this stranger comes. I'm staying at the host house. He's out at work. I'm there with my kid. I got bags under my eyes. I haven't slept in 3 days properly. So you said 36 hours and you're fucking going nuts. I'm like 72 hours into this, I'm going crazy. The door knocks. It's the next door neighbor who I don't know. Get this. This is how delirious I am. He says, hey, is Mark home, my host? I'm making up the name. I don't remember. It's 33 years ago. He goes, Mark home. I go, no, he's at work, man. He goes, oh, Who are you? I said, I'm doing, I'm the guy from Canada. I'm doing the seminar. He goes, oh, I'm going to be at the tournament. I'm going to be at the seminar. I said, hey, man, is there any chance that you could watch my son for 2 hours? I need a nap. And he goes, what? Like, I just a complete stranger here to take my kid. But get this. What a moment. And I got goosebumps. And I only thought about it because of what you said before. And your question, Nancy, Andy, Andy asked, and I want to reset the listeners because we went down a bunch of rabbit holes. What do we do with people who are burned out, and how do they rise to the occasion? And it was like, well, part of it was if you've, and I don't like using the muscle memory. Muscles don't have memory. Motor engrams, neural patterns, scenario training, so that you say the right thing. You don't ever forget to say please. It's just part of your. It's like a you use the word like verbal jujitsu. It's part of your. And I always talk about this when I talk about choice speech and de-escalation. If I said hit me 10 times, guys, and I'll just grab you and hit me 10 times, both of you would be able to, just drop an elbow, palm strike, I'll gouge your eye. But if I said use 10 words in a sentence like a striking combination to de-escalate me, most people go, what? What do you mean? I go, your verbal sparring needs to be as adept as your physical. And most defensive tactics, law enforcement, care and service help, they don't teach like that. It's block-based training. It's not brain-based. Anyways, let me finish this Australia. I say to the guy, I'm delirious. He goes, oh, I'll be at your seminar. I said, hey, would you watch my son for a couple hours? I need a nap. He says, what? I said, I haven't slept in 3 days. I'm going nuts. Like, I need a nap. Please watch my son. And he looks at me and he puts his hand on my shoulder. And he says, some people need you more. And I went, what? And he's just holding my shoulder. He's saying, no, I'm not going to do this. He didn't tell me why, but he said, someone needs you more right now. And my son's crying in the background. And I internalized that. It gave me almost like I had gone to sleep, but I was tired. It was like, I need to focus on this little person right now.
The mission.
Right, the mission. And so I wanted to share that because that's something that if you're 48 hours into, some austere environment in a survival situation or in the military, or, it's the summer of love and you're on duty during protests and you're exhausted and now somebody's screaming at you and spitting in your face and stuff, you got to remember the mission. And you got to remember that you have much more resilience than the fear, the movie in your mind that's playing.
Colonel, please. Yeah, he's opened the door here. Yeah.
We kind of rewind back. The link between suicide and sleep deprivation. Right now, it is physically impossible for you to take your life. The drive to self-preservation in every living organism is too powerful. Alcohol inhibits the drive to self-preservation.
Yep.
Alcohol is very often a catalyst in suicide. And we don't understand how that works. But here's the thing. Being sleep deprived is just like being drunk.
Yep.
In almost every way. In every way. When we talk about traffic deaths, when we talk about drug overdoses, when we talk about suicide, being sleep deprived is just like being drunk.
Yep.
And it inhibits the drive to self-preservation. It's more than just being irrational. It's more than just seeking escape. All of that's right. All of that's true and valid. It's that you are biologically now able to perform an act that was biologically impossible. And sleep deprivation is just like being drunk. And so we've got to understand the danger. Traffic deaths and drug overdoses and suicide. These are exploding worldwide. Decade after decade, we brought traffic deaths down. Airbags, seatbelts, medical technology. Now, worldwide traffic deaths have exploded. Suicides have exploded. And the opiate epidemic. Why opiates? Sleep deprivation creates chronic pain. And when you're sleep deprived, the opiates have a double whammy. And so all of this ties together in understanding that. But to kind of cut back around to Tony's point on that, we teach a lot of church safety. And we tell them, look, you're 1,000 times more likely to lay hands on them than you are to use a gun. and you're 1,000 times more likely to talk to them than you are to lay hands on them.
There you go.
So
There you go.
where should the priority be? Now, when you need a gun, you need it really bad. But where should the priority be? To intercede before you get to that point, to have these tools ahead of time. And that's really Tony's basic point there, is to have those tools. Give me 10 times, boom, boom, boom. Now give me just 10 words.
Yeah, I also think he touched on a thought that you were articulating earlier in your training when you were in Ranger School. Even though you were sleep deprived, even though you were food deprived, even though there was fatigue, there was still an appeal to you as a candidate to reach for something bigger than your personal needs in the moment. And in the service of that, you will find the resilience to pull out. And I think that so many people are, and I hate to say it this way, but it's true. Good leadership does that. They're not led in a way to discover that is available to them. That a good leader would say to them, I know you've worked a double. I know you're giving it everything you got. The mission here is this. I know it's in you. Go after it and get it done. The shift's only 2 more hours. In other words, whatever the case might be, it's leadership that helps people discover what's in there that they still have. I learned that in swimmer school, for God's sake.
What you just said, though, would it be more effective for that leader at that time to say, these people need you? They desperately need you. As you love your fellow man, as you love your way of life, you got to give it just 2 more hours on this shift.
Yeah.
There's the group dynamic of love. Jesus said, greater love is no one than this, that they lay down their life for their friends.
Yeah.
I tell everybody there's many ways to lay down your life. There's many ways to lay down your life. Sometimes, and I've got this on my tombstone. We had the tombstone made for my 50th wedding anniversary. The tombstone's a bench. And on the top of the bench, it says, have a seat, weary traveler. And then asterisk. And then an asterisk. And on the front of the bench, it says, yes, this is an engraved invitation. But on the back of the tombstone is my personal life motto. Sometimes the greatest love is not to sacrifice your life, but to live a life of sacrifice. Sometimes the greatest love is not the sacrifice.
And it's uncomfortable, Colonel. Most people avoid that because of the discomfort that is associated with it. Yet, when they're in a place where they are indulging all of their desires, what do? They play video games that emulate the characteristics of the person who lives a life of sacrifice and service. It's amazing to me.
That's so well said.
Yeah, and it was Vody who actually indicated that not long ago in Vody Bauman in an interview, is that the qualities of the person that is attractive to the young person who's in the basement playing video games, the character that they're executing or performing is the one who's doing the duty, doing the responsibility, doing the selfless thing, or doing the hard thing. So I would agree that we are absolutely in a dispensation in our culture right now where I think we've gotten to the nth degree on the indulgence of personal satisfaction in our public messaging. And look what it's gotten us. We have people that are not particularly adept socially. The algorithms are separating people. You can now have relationship with an AI bot. This is awful in the context of suicide intervention, because now there are people trying to create technology that appraises and evaluates someone's audible statements to see if a referral is necessary. This is going the wrong direction.
Tony, but between us here, something came together for me that I think is very powerful. Almost as powerful as please tell me what's wrong.
Yeah.
When you cut, these people need you. They need you.
Yeah.
You gotta hang in there for another 2 hours on your shift. You know, when you think about motivating this person, and when we cut to the heart of the matter, you know, in Ranger School, it's all about your buddies. You don't want to let down the team.
Right.
I was dripping wet. I was exhausted. I hadn't slept for days. It's pitch black, and we're going up this hillside, and it's a steep hillside. I'm soaking wet. I've got 60 pounds of equipment on me, another 20 pounds of water on top of that, you know, and I'm totally exhausted. And I thought, I'll just slip and fall. I'll fall. And that'll be an honorable injury. And then I don't have to do this anymore. The next one I'm going to let go. And the next one I'm going to let go. But I kept thinking, if I fall and if I get injured, my buddies are going to have to carry me out. And I can't do that to them.
I can't do that to them. Yeah.
And it keeps coming back around to something bigger than yourself. Like the guy that told how powerful that is. You know, these people need you right now. Your child needs you right now. Somebody needs you more right now. To keep coming back around to the heart of the matter. I think it's just as powerful as please tell me what's wrong. As you got to go out there because people need you. And, you know, this is only true for first responders and medical community. It's not true for the guy in the checkout line. God bless him. It's not true for the guy in McDonald's. God bless him. But for people doing what we train people for, it's absolutely true. They need you. They truly need you.
You know what? And for what it's worth, the people in ministry, there are people who work at the drugstore who are serving others. In other words, I think you can get into some of those areas to appeal in the same way. Tony, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna. You sort of read my mind there. I think it's what you said, Dave. Is that the first responders, leadership and training needs to make sure they understand that, because there's that, you know, Hippocratic do no harm. You want to get in there and serve and protect, and at certain levels there's conflict. Like if you want to be a cop or in the military, there's a part of you that is also attracted to the fight and that battle of good and evil. But Andy and I work with a lot of like clinicians and doctors and medical, and you know, no one says I want to be a nurse or a doctor or a psychologist. I also hope I learn how to headbutt and elbow people if they're dysregulated and they attack me. So there's a real disconnect there. However, going back to where you were going with that, Andy, and I was thinking the same thing. It's kind of a goofy story, but I was coming back from a trip, sleep deprived, red eye flight. I get into a cab, and a lot of times for as much as I talk and I speak around the world, I'm also very, very happy when I'm alone, and very happy to be alone, watch a movie, read a book, play with my dogs. So I came back from this trip and I get into a cab, and he starts talking, and I'm exhausted and I don't want to talk. And he's got, you know, oh yeah, is this your first time in Montreal? No, I live here. Oh, how long you lived here? My whole life. Hey, can we just get to my house? Yeah. Do you want me to take this long way, or do you want me to go over the mountain? And he's going on, and he didn't pick up on my agitation and my tone because I was tired, right? So and that I was like, I just want to be alone, but I didn't articulate that. And then I started looking at the cab, and there's like wallpaper inside this cab. This is old days, way before Uber. And there's little tassels on the windows, and it's like he's decorated the entire cab. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I realized, it was very humbling, I was in the car being driven by the world's best taxi driver. He had realized he was a taxi driver, and this is how he was going to take care of his family. And so he lived in his car, and it was like immaculate. It was like weird. And he was just there, almost like it's like you take your family. Sure, both of you have been to Disneyland at least once, right? Disney World, Disneyland once, or yeah. And you go on like the Jungle Cruise. You've never been, Andy?
No.
You really?
Will you take me, Tony?
I'll take you, but you won't be able to get on a bunch of rides because of your height. But like sometimes, like you're on the Jungle Cruise, and you got the best tour guide. He's funny or she's funny and laughing, and you realize this person loves their job. And then you can go on another ride where someone's like, okay, if you look over to your left, you'll see, the Pirates of the Caribbean. And it's like, I can't wait to get off my shift. How do we motivate, inspire, and go, look, if your job is to be a taxi driver, be the best taxi driver. If at this station in your life, you're a tour guide at Disney, be freaking amazing, because these people need that experience. So it's just, again, a little bit more metaphysical and easier said than done, but
Colonel, your thoughts on motivation in relationship to—
It's funny the piece you talked about please tell me what's wrong, and it was out on social media. You can look it up online. Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, please tell me what's wrong, and bring it up on social media. And it's the actual, my co-author put that together with the background video. Yep. And it's the narrative, it's the narration from our book on spiritual warfare. And the actual narration is me. I narrate all my stuff, and people follow the voice, and they get a lot of good things. I love narrating. But in that same book, we quoted Dr. Martin Luther King, who said, even if you're a street sweeper, you'd be the best street sweeper you could possibly be, so the heavens themselves look down and say, here was the greatest street sweeper who ever swept the street. And that's what Tony said. Here was the greatest cab driver who ever drove a cab. He's given it everything he's got.
Yeah.
And so, it's funny. It's my goal at this point in my life is try to make everybody smile. Just try to make everybody happy. I walk on a plane and I smile and look at the flight attendant in the eye, and they always smile back. And I said, that's a nice smile. You hang on that smile. Don't nobody take that away. They always appreciate that. I get a nice meal at a fast food place, and I always say, where else can you get such a great meal at such a price? And I tell them, you keep making good stuff for good people. And they always smile. And I think we're feeling just a little bit better. And to spend your whole life trying to take everybody and make them feel, and sometimes you're tired, and sometimes you're wiped out, and sometimes you don't do it. But just trying to do that every time.
I think it was Tim Tebow, Colonel, who said, not everybody can be the best in the world, but everybody can be the best that they can be. And there's nothing more, I think, constructive, certainly in a treatment setting where people are going through the grind of going to their groups, taking their medication, doing their movements. There's nothing more constructive. We discovered this in the social learning research by using what we would refer to as positive appraisals of appropriate behavior. Hey, great job getting your room done before breakfast this morning. Thanks. That's how you get out of this place quick. And hey, I heard you got your level 5 today. Great news. And hey, I heard you had a fantastic visit on Saturday. That's how you get out of here. Good job. We actually counted in the staff resident interaction chronograph how many of those per person per hour to give, which impacted length of stay, it reduced it, and greater time in the community, it increased it. The positive verbal. Isn't that amazing? You're describing that in a way before it was ever known as a positive verbal. You're describing, be the best you can be in the moment. Hey, this is a great meal. What a great value. Thank you. Those kinds of things make a better world.
Amen. And that's our goal. Is just to, sometimes the greatest love is not to sacrifice your life, but to live a life of sacrifice. Jesus said, a new commandment I give you. There weren't a new commandment. 10 commandments are set aside. A new commandment I give you. To love one another as I have loved you. Boom. Yeah. That's our mission on earth. Whatever perspective you come from, our mission is just to love people and try to make the world a better place. To fight evil with love. The opposite of evil is love. How do we fight evil? Love. And say those people need you. You go out that door and they're hurting. They're human beings just like you. And they're living a life of hell. and they need you to go out there and give it the best you have every day.
Boy,
And
and the message you get from social media is love yourself, love yourself, love yourself. Take care of you, get what you need. And none of that amounts to the quality of life that I think is lived by people that live the life of sacrifice. Tony has been at this for 40 years with just his thing. And I'll never forget when after he stopped thinking I was a stalker and he thought I was credible, when I told him there's a whole world here that needs you, this guy got like, oh, I get it now. So that whole sector can benefit in a very, very tangible way. Put me in, coach. That's who he was. He was, as like, arguably, Tony, you tell me, I would have to think that, I mean, yes, you've always been attached to healthcare, but when you saw the way in which we could bring your content into the care and services world, where these other training packages are generally used and fail, frankly, I have to imagine that was as originally enthusiastic as it was when you started on the journey. Like that was equally exciting.
I still think you're stalking me. That's a whole other conversation. But when I was very skeptical, so Dave, Andy hit me up on LinkedIn, and it was right in the middle of the last 5 years of craziness, and it was like, left versus right, and he's telling me, and I did a little research, and I'm like, there's no way this audience is going to want to see, and those of you who are watching this, not listening to this, I've got on my No Fear shirt, which is one of our verticals in the company. And it's this idea that you got to turn fear into fuel. And the only way you can do that is to study fear. And there are things in life you need to do afraid. You have no choice. And so the old adrenaline company, the No Fear company, we all had their t-shirts when we were teenagers that was spelled no fear. That's a myth. That's an illusion. There's no such a thing as no fear, but we all bought the shirts. And then on the wall behind me are the words fuck fear, which offends a lot of people, but fuck is an acronym for face it, understand it, control it, know it. And the most important word in there is the control it, that you need to manage your fear. You need to control it. Now, back to Andy's question and comment. When you first pitched it to me, my fear, my inclination for fear is there's going to be resistance. They're not going to get it. They're not going to like the American flag. They're not going to like how I swear. They're not going to. And then when I got to know and understand the need, I got really excited. Dave, what we did is we created a separate division inside the SPEAR training module called SPEAR Care. CARE is an acronym for Comprehensive Aggression Response Education. And it's my entire life's work reimagined through trauma-informed education and training. And it wouldn't have happened without you, Andy. I hate giving you compliments. But it wouldn't have happened without you. But
isn't that a deeply rewarding thing?
It could be. Tony ruins it for me. It could be deeply rewarding.
It is. I think he's talking about the audience. But we've had so here's an interesting thing, and I don't know if this is where you were going. When I teach a tier 1 operator stuff, and he goes, this is really cool, and I'm showing him like a half spear off of a long gun, or penetrating or doing whatever stuff, I expect that person to win and dominate because they made it through selection and here they are. But when I'm teaching a person who said, I'm signing up for do no harm, and now I'm being mandated to take this self-defense training, and then they're going, I told Andy when we started is I said, how can anybody focus on de-escalation if they're in fear of their life? That's at odds and conflict. To manage my fear and then lean into the strategies of empowerment and de-escalation, you need to know you can also protect yourself. And so that's the holistic side of our program. And yeah, it is incredibly rewarding because we're teaching people that if you looked at them in lineup going, who are you betting on in this fight? You would never bet on them. They don't have the physique. They don't have the eyes. They're there to do no harm, but they need to be able to protect themselves and get home and see their family. And they need to also be able to do it with as little, if any, violence as possible, because in many cases, the individual that the aggression's with is dysregulated. It's not personal. It's very complex, but it's fascinating.
Guys, we've been at this for an hour. We could go for another 3. That's what it feels like.
I have a question though before we wrap this up. I have a question for Dave.
Yeah.
How do you? I've interviewed you for my No Fear podcast. I've known you for decades. We met on the road, talking at the same events. I've been a fan of yours. My favorite quote is one of yours in one of your nonfiction books about referring to me in the future because we're in the golden era of defensive tactics and self-defense. And I love that. I love that quote. But my question to you is, I've seen you on stage, off stage, behind the scenes, at friends' houses, at dinner. Your energy, your focus, your smile hasn't changed ever. So there's not like your public-facing mask, and then you get off stage and there's no hot mic, and you go, "Fuck, I hated that. That was shit. Get me out of here." How do you maintain positivity? What are some of your rituals? When the assassination happened, when we see the church attack yesterday, is there a moment where the Dave that we don't see is like going, "Oh my God, not this again"? What are you doing for meditation, breathing, or to reset yourself so that you can show up for us?
First off, when we talk about helping people, it's tell you, where else you can get such a great meal at such a price? Keep doing good food for good people. And I get more out of that than they do. When I walk away from an audience that I've given them something, I get more out of it than they do. I really feel like, and the research is there over and over again. If you want to be happy, do things for people. If you want to know joy and pleasure, do things for people. And be generous and be grateful. Gratitude is so important. One of our rituals, my wife and I, my wife of 50 years, my high school sweetheart.
Amazing.
I tell people she was 15, I was 17 when I proposed to her. We are from Arkansas. And 2 years later, the 17-year-old girl flew out to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and married Private First Class Grossman, and been with me ever since, 50 years now. And every night we pray for each other. And I think there's power in that, and we hold each other up in prayer. I think that when we look at the bad things in this world, it goes back to a loving God would not make you his puppet. A loving God would let you make your own decisions, even when they're not the ones he would want you to make. Isn't that what a loving parent would do? Within limitations. But to take just a minute too, and what I've found in recent years is to take that big picture. If you're a person of faith, and I tell people it's not about religion, but if you think there's a life after this life, if you think even remotely there might be, then you got to understand it's infinitely more important. Well, one life in eternity is infinitely more important than everything that happens on this world put together. And if we can wrap our mind around that, if you're a person of faith, lean into that. And I tell people, don't let the things of this world pull you down. Take that big picture, and don't let the things of the world pull you down. And I think as we teach it, as we preach it, it comes back to us more and more. And that whole dynamic of thinking there is a life after this life, and it's infinitely more important. So here's the thing: a few more years on this weary earth is nothing compared to eternity. A little less suffering in this world is nothing compared to eternity. Charlie Kirk, he's in eternity. He's truly doing great.
He's in paradise now. Yeah.
And that should not bring us down. These things in this world, and right up to the end, I'm just an old paratrooper. I was 18 years old. There's nothing in the world more crazy than a plane load of idiots throwing themselves into the darkness at 1,200 feet in the middle of the night. A bunch of lunatics just hurl themselves into the darkness. That's how it's going to feel to die. There's always this doubt. Wait till the jump master gives a signal. Make sure you got your parachute. But that dying is going to be that last great adventure, that last dive into the darkness. So I think it comes back to this faith, to being motivated by love, by being truly joyful every day that you can be a service to other people, and taking pleasure from that, and don't let things of this world pull you down. I think if we truly lean into our faith, if we lean into that mission of love as our purpose on earth, and we recognize that the research is overwhelming, you get vastly more from doing for others than you do for doing for yourself.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. And so that's me, and I've gotten better at that over the years. It's so rewarding to see it at 69 and say, I am a little bit better person than I was 5 years ago. I'm a noticeably, discernibly better, wiser, gentler person than I was just 5 years ago.
Yeah.
There are people in traffic less,
So is Tony, believe it or not. Even though he won't admit it, so is Tony. He's much nicer to me today than he was 5 years ago. Colonel Grossman, it's an honor to have had you on our program for this inaugural episode. I know Tony probably feels the same way. Let's do this again in a month or two. There's a lot more content to discuss here, and I would love to get into the weeds on that a bit more. But for our audience, I'll also say that this is not the last time that you'll see Colonel Grossman. He's very interested in our work. He's very active in schools and in other places that are in desperate need of the kinds of things that Tony and I do. And we would absolutely love and cherish the opportunity to collaborate with you, Colonel. So thank you so very, very much. And to our audience, we will see you again soon. Thank you for joining us on this inaugural episode of De-Escalation Conversations. We hope that you got something out of it. I know I certainly did. I'm your host, Andy Prisco, the special guest host, Tony Blauer. Hopefully you'll be joining us for every one of these. Oh, great. Thank you, Jack. Good to hear you, buddy. Some nice friends of yours, Tony, and mine in the comments, just resonating with today's production. Thank you so much, Colonel. Any parting words before we sign off?
Just believe in who you are, believe in what you do. They need you. They really, truly need you. So you go out there and give it the best you got.
Dave, so good to see you again. Be safe.
Always, Tony. Thank you, Andy.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
More that you can lean into your own personal discomfort, say what needs to be said in a non-offensive way, the more you make the world a better place.